This deck is a lot of fun for casual players.
Subscribe.
The Chronicle Charmer decks have been out for a minute, and I promised I would show you everything you need to know to get started with 3 of these bad boys, so that's what we're gonna do. While the deck list I've made for you is meant to be as competent as possible, it's worth noting that the Charmer deck itself just isn't very competitive even with the new support, so don't expect to be winning tournaments with this. It is a lot of fun though, and a great deck to play casually with friends, so I'll show you a full deck list using 3 structure decks, talk about some of the important cards so that you actually understand what to do with the deck, show you any combos you need to know, and finally I'm going to take the exact list in this video to a local tournament. So get your spellbooks out and let's get into it.
It's not Leviosa, it's Leviosa.
Alright, so let's just start by getting into our 40 cards deck list here using only 3 of the Chronicles Spirit Charmers decks. This is built to be as competent as it can possibly be, which unfortunately means the kind of Charmer deck has lost its identity a little bit. We're not really playing all of the fun little Charmer cards that don't really do anything. We are instead focusing on the good things that the deck can do, and that all revolves around this card, Spellbook of the Grand Circle. Of course, I'll show you the combo after, but we are starting here with 3 copies of Spellbook of the Grand Circle. We are building around this card, so we want to max out on the access to it. Therefore, we're also playing 3 Blue Boy Spellbook Magician of Prophecy and 3 Spellbook of Secrets. So this is 9 copies of the Spellbook of the Grand Circle. Of course, we don't want to draw 3 of these in total and have 2 of them completely redundant, so we are also playing 2 Spellbook of Knowledge. Where possible, we want to try and bait our opponent's interruptions, so being able to fire off a Spellbook of Knowledge, which says draw 2 cards, a lot of people would feel inclined to hit that with an Ash Blossom, meaning we could then activate our Spellbook of the Grand Circle and actually play the game. The actual requirements we need in our deck for the Spellbook of the Grand Circle play is 4 Charmers, each with a different attribute. So of course we have Win, Hita, Oza, and Area. Here I've chosen to go for 2 level 3s and 2 level 5s. The level 5s do count as Charmer cards, and they are spellcasters with 1850 attack. So by playing these, we're actually able to put damage on the board, but the level 5s are also just dead cards in hand, so you don't want to play too many of them. Therefore, we're playing 2 little guys as well, which are able to be normal summoned and maybe sent to grave for something like Spellbook of Knowledge. The other cards we need for our combo lines are 1 copy of Awakening of the Possessed and 1 copy of Possessed Partnerships. This makes our guys big and lets us draw cards. This is our interruption. Finally, for the last of the Charmer cards, we're playing 3 copies of Spirit Charmers. On its own, this really isn't doing a whole lot for the deck. Typically, it's only going to get you access to these 2 cards here. The main reason we're actually playing it is because it does discard a card. If you have Spellbook of the Grand Circle, you cannot activate it if you have one of your targets in hand. So you need to find ways to discard or put them in the graveyard so that you can then activate the Spellbook of the Grand Circle. For that reason, we're also playing a Horus Engine. We have 3 copies of Umseti, 2 copies of King Sarcophagus, and then 2 additional Horus targets. The Horus Engine on its own is pretty powerful, but of course it also allows us to discard any of our Charmers, and therefore allow us to activate the Spellbook in situations where we otherwise wouldn't be able to. We're also playing 3 copies of Fairy Tale Luna and 1 Magicalized Fusion because we can summon Quintet Magician with this, and I think that's just really cool. Quintet Magician's a very cool card. Finally, for the kind of generic non-engine interruptions, we have 3 copies of Angel Statue Azarune. This is not a hard once per turn, so if you open multiples, that's multiple disruptions. We have 3 copies of Sol and Luna, which is kind of like Book of Moon, and then we have 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. We don't have a side deck or anything, so we've just put in all of our strong generic cards. That is the 40 card main deck right there. And then for the extra deck, very simple. We have 3 of our Fusion Monster Charmers of the Grand Circle, 2 copies of Silhouette Rabbit, 2 copies of Celine, 2 copies of Access Code Talker. We have 1 each of the Charmers in case any of them come up, 1 Zombie Vampire, and 1 Quintet Magician. Now, let's move on to the important cards. Now, when you're going first in Yu-Gi-Oh!, you're essentially trying to set up interruptions for your opponent and disrupt their plays so that they're unable to beat you. Here we have all of the cards available to us that potentially disrupts our opponent, and then here below them, we have our ways to access them. Essentially, we want to try and make our way to these disruptive cards when we're going first. First up, we have Possessed Partnerships. This is like a Reborn and a Pop all in the same effect as long as we control 2 different attributes at the time of resolution. So as part of our combo line, we're able to access this through either our fusion monster, Charmers of the Grand Circle, which can search it because it's a possessed trap, or Spirit Charmers can get access to it as well if we're unable to resolve our spellbook for whatever reason. Next up, we have the Angel statue as a rune. This is like an inherent summon negate, kind of like Solemn Judgment, but if it's destroyed by battle, you can also destroy the monster that destroyed this card. Because we're playing 3 of these in the main deck, we are going to draw this, but we can also set a copy from the deck with our Silhouette Rabbit Link monster, requiring any 2 effect monsters on the field. So that's a very easy way to convert 2 random monsters on the field into a disruption. Next up, we have Fairy Tale Luna. This is kind of a weird interruption that you would typically want to use on like extra deck monsters, because as a quick effect, you can target a monster your opponent controls and negate its effects unless they're able to send another copy of that monster from the deck or extra deck to the graveyard. So it's kind of a weird interruption, but it makes for a good normal summon when we don't really need a normal summon in our deck for any of our combos, unless we are normal summoning the blue boy. On normal summon, it can also just add a spellcaster with 1850 attack, which can be another copy of itself. Now, alongside just straight up normal summoning the Fairy Tale Luna, we can also potentially mill it off of something like the Zombie Vampire through our Horus engine. That would then allow us to special summon it to the fields and use it as an endboard piece. Next up is Solemn Luna. This isn't searchable, it's basically just non-engine in the deck. Like I said, pretty much a Book of Moon. And finally, we have Imseti, or some of the other Horus cards as well. They're not super disruptive because you can't interrupt your opponent with these cards, but if they play into them, then you can activate the effects. Pretty much all of the Horus monsters have a similar effect, where if any of your face-up cards leave the field by an opponent's card effect while this is in your face-up monster zone, you can activate whichever effect that Horus monster has, and the effect on Imseti is that you can send 1 card on the field to the grave, non-targeting. So if you just have Imseti up on your end boards, it puts additional pressure on your opponent to be careful with how they're actually dealing with your board. So yeah, not a whole lot of disruptive cards that we're able to access in our deck here, but I thought I would just make you aware of what we're actually attempting to set up on our going first turn. And now, I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's get into some combos. Alright, so this is our going first combo. It's the only real combo I need to show you, and that is with our Spellbook of the Grand Circle. We do need to shuffle 2 cards from our hand into the deck after we resolve this card, so that's why we have 2 additional Dark Ruler No More here as well. We're going to activate our Spellbook of the Grand Circle, and that's going to add 4 Charmers with different attributes from Banishment, Graveyard, or deck. So of course, we're going to add our Area, our Ozza, our Hita, and our Win, and then we're going to shuffle 2 cards into our deck here. It's very rare that you get a card that can search for 4 different cards. We're then going to activate our Graveyard effect of Spellbook of the Grand Circle, banishing itself for cost. That's going to allow us to fuse from the extra deck using Charmer and Familiar Possessed monsters from hand or field. It's kind of like polymerization. But additionally to that, on resolution of our fusion summon, our opponent cannot activate cards or effects. So we're going to fuse here using all 4 of our Charmer monsters to summon out our Charmers of the Grand Circle. We're going to activate its effect on summon, and thanks to the Spellbook of the Grand Circle, our opponent cannot activate anything in response to this. This card has a very unique effect because it has 4 different effects, and you can choose one of those 4 effects 4 times. Allow me to explain. So the 4 effects this card has is this card gains 800 attack permanently, add 1 possessed spell or trap from deck to hand, non-targeting return 1 card on the field to the hand, and non-targeting special summon any spellcaster monster from your graveyard. This all counts as the 1 effect, so it's not different chain links or anything, and you can choose any combination of these 4 effects that you want. You can bounce 2 cards from your opponent's field, summon 1 spellcaster from the graveyard, and add a possessed spell or trap, or if you really want to, you can summon 4 spellcasters from the graveyard. Going second, you can bounce 4 cards from your opponent's field if you want to, and so hopefully you get the point there. With our combo here, we're going to be summoning a spellcaster from the graveyard 2 times, and we're going to be searching for a possessed spell or trap 2 times. So we'll add the possessed partnerships and the Awakening of the Possessed, and then we'll special summon our 2 big bodies from the graveyard. If you're trying to update the deck, this is where it can get really interesting, because with the 2 level 5s, you can go into a K9 engine, or with the 2 level 3s, you can go into a Fiendsmith engine, but of course we are just sticking with the 3 structure decks at the moment. So from here, we're going to link our fusion and one of our monsters into the Silhouette Rabbit, and the Silhouette Rabbit effect on summon is going to set a continuous trap that can be summoned as a monster. So that's going to be the Angel statue as a rune. As disruption number 1, we'll set our possessed partnerships as interruption number 2, and then we'll activate our Awakening of the Possessed. This gives all of our monsters 300 attack for every attribute we control on the field, so currently our monsters are gaining 600 attack. It gives our Charmer monsters protection from card effects, so our area cannot be destroyed by card effects. And once per turn, if a spellcaster with 1850 attack is normal or special summoned, mandatory effect, so this would typically be Chainlink 1, we can draw a card. Silhouette Rabbit is also able to pop an opponent's spell or trap on the field if we summon a continuous trap as a monster from the back row. So on our opponent's turn, if we activate the Angel Statue Azarune to special summon itself, we can trigger the Silhouette Rabbit to destroy a spell or trap. If our opponent attempts to summon a monster, we can tribute our Azarune trap cards to negate that summon. Now this only works on summons that don't start a chain. So for example, a Link summon or a Synchro summon or something from the hand like Cyber Dragon, we can negate that with Azarune. However, if they're summoning a monster with a card effect like a fusion spell, our trap card is actually unable to stop that summon. And then with our possessed partnerships, we're able to summon a spellcaster from graveyard in face-up attack or face-down defense position, and then of course if we control 2 different attributes, we can destroy 1 face-up card on the field. So let's say we summon back our Ozza in attack position, we can then destroy one of our opponent's cards. So with our 1 Spellbook of the Grand Circle using only 3 of our structure decks here, we've essentially gotten to 3 interruptions in total, which is actually pretty good by Spirit Charmer's standards. The rest of the cards in the deck are honestly pretty self-explanatory, so I don't need to show you any more combos, but now that you kind of understand the deck, let's take it to a tournament and see what happens. Alright, today's feature match, we're up against Ethan, and he's playing a very cool deck. He's playing Elf Note Cool Tune. We win the die roll, so we're going first. Let's get into it, baby. It is time to duel. We start our turn with Imseti pitching Dark Ruler. That's going to allow us to add the King Sarcophagus and draw a card. We then follow up with Spellbook of Secrets, adding a Blue Boy to hand. We're really just trying to bait an Ash so we can resolve our Spellbook of the Grand Circle. We normal summon the Blue Boy, adding Spellbook of Knowledge, activate the Spellbook of Knowledge, tribute in the Blue Boy to draw 2 cards. All of that resolves. I've run out of bait at this point, so we might as well just send it by activating the Spellbook of the Grand Circle, and we are allowed to resolve the effect. So we add our 4 Charmers and then shuffle back 2 cards into the deck. It might be a little awkward sometimes if you draw one of the Charmers off of Spellbook of Knowledge, but we had King Sarcophagus to discard any that we may have drawn anyway. We're now just going through the combo. We use the Graveyard effect of Spellbook of the Grand Circle to fuse our 4 Charmers into the Fusion monster and then activate its effect to add 2 Speller Traps and summon back 2 Spellcasters. Typically going to be summoning the level 5s wherever possible, because combined with the continuous spell, they're going to have a lot of attack points. Linking into our Rabbit, we set an Angel Statue from the deck. We then activate our King Sarcophagus and its effect on field, pitching a Luna to dump another Horus name. I realize I should have shuffled the Luna back into the deck with the Spellbook of the Grand Circle, because we go into the Zombie Vampire here to mill 4 and try to hit another Luna off the top of the deck. So if we had that 3rd copy in the deck, we would have been more likely to actually see the Luna here. So it probably would have been safer to just leave Imseti face up on the end board rather than actually gambling for the 2 copies of Luna in the deck. We steal Ethan's Elf Note Lucina, set all of our back row, and then throw it over to him, where he starts with a Synchro Overtake. That's going to summon a Cool Tune Rico from the deck, who on summon is going to search for a Cool Tune Mix. The Cool Tune deck is interesting because if you have a body on board, you can synchro using monsters from hand as well, and when they're used as synchro material, they get a lot of effects that can, pop spells and traps, pop monsters. So on resolution of this search, we summon our Angel Statue onto the board just to immediately use it on this special summon of Elf Note Lucina. I did this because we have another statue, so I immediately summon that onto the board as well, and he summons another Elf Note from hand. I'm not too familiar with the Elf Note cards, but they have ignition effects to get the engine going, so on summon we activate our Possessed Partnerships to reborn our Ozza and just pop the Elf Note before it's able to activate its effect. Summoning our Spellcaster with 1850 attack is going to grab us a draw off of the continuous spell, and then Ethan attempts to synchro summon the Cool Tune Trackmaker using Rico on field and the Elf Note Power Patron in hand. So that's going to activate 3 effects if it resolves. We have to negate the synchro summon. And now we are out of interruptions, so if Ethan is able to play and kill us, then so be it. He activates the Cool Tune Quick Play, adding a Q, and then normal summons the Q, summoning a Red Nova from the deck. He synchros both of those on field into the Trackmaker, so Trackmaker is going to search, Red Nova is going to summon from deck, and then Q is going to stack our deck. Nova summons a Rico from deck, and I think he adds the field spell off of the Trackmaker, which he then just immediately activates. That's going to give him an additional normal summon for the Mix here, who on summon is going to add back a Rico from the graveyard. He then synchros with the 2 bodies on field into the Cool Tune RS, which is basically like a negate with a lot of attack, but the Mix and the Rico are also going to activate here, popping a spell or trap and a monster as well. So he pops the Awakening continuous spell and pops the Elf Note Lucina. From there, he fires off the Cool Toon Synchro again because it can be used up to twice per turn. I think he adds the clip from deck and then synchros with the track maker. That's going to make the Cool Toon Loudness War, which gives his other monsters targeting and destruction protection. Clip's going to banish a card from our extra deck randomly, and the track maker is going to non-targeting bounce one of our cards to hand. He bounces back the area. Honestly though, he's kind of run out of steam because that's about as much as he can do. He does still have a couple of interruptions here, but we're not going to die at least. He goes into the battle phase and attacks over the Ozza, and then he just passes turn. So he has a negate on field with the RS, and then the Loudness War can copy an effect from his graveyard. We start by activating King Sark, pitching the area to bin a name, and he chains the Loudness War, banishing a Rico to pop the King Sarcophagus. From there, we use our secret graveyard effect of the Possessed Partnerships, which is able to place our continuous spell back from the graveyard onto the field. We then normal summon Fairy Tale Luna and go Chainlink 1, Awakening to draw a card, Chainlink 2 Luna to search another copy of itself. This gives us a spellcaster on board that we can link with the rabbit into Celine, and we activate the Celine effect, which is going to eat the negate off of the RS. He probably could have just waited for the access code talker, but either way, the RS negate was going to be used, allowing us to follow up with our Spellbook of the Grand Circle, adding 4 Charmers from the graveyard, going into our fusion monster, which is going to end the game. Out comes that beautiful purple card. On summon, we activate the effect to summon back 2 and non-targeting bounce 2. We bounce both of its monsters and attack for a lot of damage. All of our guys are gaining so much attack off of the continuous spell as well. Game 2, we got Ethan on the play, starting with normal summon Medius the Pure, which is a very good start. Summoning out the Owl from the deck, he activates the effect to fuse into the Archmage Deactorus. This guy's a negate for any card or effect on the field, while Ethan controls 3 or more different types. The Owl triggers, adding a Finmel from deck. He specials Finmel and draws a card, but he specials it in the middle zone, which apparently stops all of his Elf Note plays. So he gets a little bit flustered, sets a back row, so I call him a bozo, and then he follows up with Synchro Overtake, summoning out a Rico from the deck. On summon, of course, Rico adds a mix from the deck, and he then synchros the Rico on field with a mix in hand into a Cool Toon Remix, who's essentially going to be able to tag out on my turn. He passes it over, and I realize the Deactorus negate currently isn't live, so I take my chances and immediately fire off the Spellbook of the Grand Circle, but we get hit with the Ash Blossom, man. He then activates the Elf Note Rhapsodia trap card, pitching a card from hand, and he specials an Elf Note from deck, which is not what the card does. It's meant to summon an Elf Note from grave with a different attribute from the monster that was pitched, but yeah, maybe he's mixing it up with a different card. I don't know, man. This is why you read your opponent's cards, man, but it doesn't really matter because we were gonna lose anyway after our spellbook got ashed. There's not a whole lot else we can do in the deck if that doesn't resolve. We could only really play with King's Sarcophagus, and that just gets popped by the Cool Toon Rico. So we're going into game 3. Alright, Giga Chad, no side deck, we're going first. Surely our spellbook will resolve. We start our turn with Imseti, pitch Imseti, and that gets hit with an Ash Blossom, so I feel like we've baited the Ash. We're feeling good. We activate Spellbook of Secrets, grabbing the Spellbook of the Grand Circle from the deck. We should be free to just fire it off, but as we add it, Ethan picks it up to read it, which is a big tell for the Ghost Belle. No, unfortunately the spellbook doesn't resolve, and the rest of our hand is a complete brick. We have to set to one of those being a Dark Ruler and pass turn, so of course we get bodied. I let him play out his turn until he gets lethal on the board, and then we call it there. That is GG, man. How unfortunate. At least we didn't get 2-0'd. That's all that matters. This was round 2 of our tournament. Round 1 we played against Magnet Warriors and lost 2-1. We won a game with Quintet Magician, but we lost game 3 to Nat Beast. Round 3 we played against Pure Tri-Brigade and actually won game 1 with a Dark Ruler into the board clear. However, game 2 we got hit with an evenly matched, and game 3 we bricked. Final round we got the bye, so early home time. So overall, an 0-3 record with this deck honestly doesn't surprise me at all, especially when we don't have any hand traps or anything like that in here either. But there's definitely potential here if you want to upgrade it with things like hand traps and either a K9 or a Fiendsmith engine. Heck, maybe you can play Magistus in here as well. I'm not actually sure. Me personally though, I don't think we're going to be doing anything else with this deck. This was my my prize support, by the way. We got a super rare Mistaken Arrest, which is cool because I don't have my playset of this card yet. So we'll take that, man. 1 for this staple binder.